am Susan Elias, and this is another edition of Fashion Unfolded. I'm going to continue on from the first two-part series that I did a few years back from the how to drape a basic design. This was the basic design that I draped a few years back, and I've added a facing to the design, and I'll explain that in a minute. Here's the front, and here's the back. We're going to now take this muslin and we're going to make a pattern out of it on paper so that we can then cut onto fabric. Like I said, this is the facing that we have over here, and the reason for the facing is to clean off the neckline as well as the armhole. And we have that in the front as well as the back. The first thing we're going to do now is take it off the mannequin. So here we go, taking it off the apex. I'm going to take the facing off first. And this is the facing. I'm going to lay this flat. And now we're going to take the bodice off the mannequin. This was a little bit of a detailed gathers that we did here in the center front. Just putting these guys in here. All right. And this is your muslin design. This is the front, and this is the back. We have a front dart and a back dart, and then we have the actual facing as a separate thing. Okay, the next thing we need to do is take all the pins off of this muslin. I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly, like that. All the pins. All the extra ease has been added, all the lowering of the dart as well as lowering of the side seams, all those things that are necessary already have been incorporated in this muslin. So now all we have to do, we have all the pins off of the front and back. I'm going to do that with my facing as well. And in a minute we're going to go to the iron and press everything flat, all the seam allowances flat, the entire piece flat, so we can make a nice transfer from the muslin to the paper. So here we go. We're at the iron at this point, and I'm going to press everything flat except the center front and the center back, which is still folded underneath. Taking my steam iron, and I'm locking the threads and making it flat. This is the second facing. Again, locking it. I've got the center front here. I'm leaving it turned under at the center front, and I'm just pressing everything nice and flat. Okay. And here's the back. I'm trying to go with the threads when I'm pressing so it doesn't distort it in any way. Crosswise and then lengthwise. And we're done with the ironing process. We're going to bring it over now and transfer it to the paper. Now we're ready to transfer the muslin design to the paper to make a paper pattern so you can cut and sew your new design. Here's the muslin set aside. The first thing you're going to need is pattern making paper. Here we have pattern making paper. It usually comes like this white with indications of markings going one way, 1 inch apart, and lengthwise 1 inch apart, as well as a cross grain or a bias. I took a large piece of paper like this, and I folded it in the center. The reason why I'm folding it in the center is because most of the time with a design that we don't usually have a seam in the center front. So we're going to go ahead and make that on the fold. I have the front portion of the design already on the paper. We're going to use push pins and go through the muslin, the paper, and the cork board, which is underneath. And we're going to put it right at the edge of the fold that we have right there. And then we're going to put push pins all along the inside portion of the seam line. Not the seam allowance, which is that, but the seam line. So I'm going to hold this all the way down with push pins. We're also going to put a push pin at the apex and the push pin at the lowered portion of the dart. So that'll be the new dart ending. I'm going to continue till everything is set. So now it's flat. Then we're going to take a special tracing wheel, which is a professional tracing wheel, and it has large prongs like this. You need the long prongs to go through the muslin, the paper, all the way to the cork board. I'm going to go on the design line, that's what this is called, and I'm just going to go through all the 3 layers and trace the design line like that. That's the shoulder. We have the armhole right here. And we have the side seam. This is the actual side seam. This is the ease you need for movement with the garment. We're going to go at the ease line like that. I'm going to do the waistline. I'm going to stop where the dart is and make a little cross mark. I'm going to continue. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the new dart lines, which is the blue line that you see here. And that's all I'm doing. It also has an indication here. This is where the little bit of gathers stop. So I need that for a notch that I'll show you later. Now that everything is traced, we're taking the push pins off like that. Taking the muslin off. And we're going to true the lines, all these little indications, with the proper rulers. The first thing we're going to do is use the straight edge. I have a straight edge here, and I'm going to use the a black marker so you can see. This was the indication of the apex, just putting that in again. That's the center point of the bust. This is the lowered portion where the dart is now, and from that portion to the end, I'm going to put a straight line. So we have that side, and we have this side. That's a straight portion. We have the side seam. That should be a straight line as well. So I'm going to, even though it might be a little off, we're going to straighten that out with the ruler, like that. Then I'm going to take the French curve. Like I told you and showed you before, this French curve gives you the proper armhole shape. I'm going to put that and try to get as close as I can to all the little dots. So wherever it is, and then I'm going to trace in that line with the marker. This is the shoulder line. I'm going to put that as a straight line as well. And there we go. And this is a curved line. There should also be a straight indication from the center front, which is this. I'm going to put center front there again, about 1/4 inch. So I'm going to kind of draw in 1/4 inch there. Then I'm going to take whatever ruler works for this shape. I'm going to use this same French curve to get this shape here like that. And it kind of goes up a little bit, so we're going to do that here and just follow the shape. There we go. And we're just going to go further down like that. Okay, now we have the waistline here. Before that, I'm going to give you a little indication. This is going to be a notch, which I'll explain. Now, it's the same as you need 1/4 inch of a perpendicular line. You need 1/4 inch of a perpendicular line at the waist intersection. Then I'm going to take my French curve and go ahead and follow the dots as much as I can. And that's it. Now we're going to finish the truing process. Because it's muslin, it's fabric, there could be some movement, and we're going to make it completely straight on the paper so that everything will be set up right. These are just all the actual design lines. Now we need seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and do that. On the neckline, usually you could have about 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to give you 1/4 inch, and I'm going to do that with my marker as well, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just following 1/4 inch with my ruler and giving you a little bit of a line. At the shoulder, you usually get 1/2 inch. I'm going to give you 1/2 inch seam allowance. Armholes usually are 1/2 inch as well, so I'm going to give you 1/2 inch as well, right there. I'm just using that. It's not as accurate to use a magic marker, obviously, but for this situation, so that you can see, it's fine. Okay, I'm just kind of giving it through the curve the lines. And I'm going to go out. I'm going to give you a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the side seam, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a 1/2 inch seam allowance here at the waistline. I'm going to give you like a little half circle here. I'll explain why I'm doing that. And then I'm going to give you a 1/2 inch here as well. Okay. This is all you need to do as far as the markings right now. Then you have to get a paper scissor. It's a special scissor just for paper. You don't ever want to use your good scissors on the paper. It will dull it. So here's a paper scissor. I'm going to cut around all of my all my black lines right now and follow that through. So quickly cut this around here as well. And here's the side seam. I'm going to go around the armhole. Okay, and this we're just going to get rid of really quickly. Okay, now I made this little half moon, and I'll tell you why. We're going to true the paper now as if it was in a garment or in muslin. And the first thing we need to do is fold back this one side of the dart. I'm going to fold it back from one end to the other end, like that. And then I'm going to put my finger right on the end of that dart, and I'm going to move this over to this side. And I'm going to cup it, because what happens when you form a dart is you start to get a 3D design, which is what's happening here. At this point, I want to make sure that this line matches up with that line. It's about a 1/16 of an inch off, so I'm going to fix that. I'm going to take my little ruler, and I'm going to just shape it differently there and fix that. Now I'm going to, while it's closed, make sure that I have a 1/2 inch here. There are 2 ways to do this. I like to do it while it's still closed. So I'm going to, as the dart is closed, I'm going to pick up the paper and cut it at the 1/2 inch. Once I do that, when I open it up, you'll see a little pointy version there. And that's because that extra fabric is needed to compensate for that shape, that dart. And that's all you need to do for the front.